Welcome everybody, welcome to Flat Earth Philosophy. It's all flat earth here and it's all described in philosophy, and today we're actually going to talk about philosophy, Plato's dialogue in particular. And it all came about from watching a Ken Wheeler video, well only a couple of minutes of it. So I'm going to give you my take on it. So we're referring to the Republic 509b to 511. So go check out Ken's video first maybe, then come back and look at what I've got here. Now in these few pages Plato's talking about, or Socrates, whoever, is talking about the celestial bodies not being physical, only projections. And I've been stating this all along. But he describes it quite well in here, so if you go and read that from 509 to 511, you'll know what I mean. He's talking about this area here, the tropical gap being the dielectric, begins here, in our physical world that is, and comes over into the creator, the place we do not know, because it has to go back through there for the recycling system. It's the way the magnetic field flows. But what's being created up here comes over into here. So this touched on what I've been talking about, and also my previous video how I brought the Bible into it and told you how the olive leaf represents the magnetic flux over the earth, and the earth, the flat line through the middle is the earth, and the strong force and weak force being the cattle and the beast. The beast being the strong force, the cattle the weak force in the magnetic field, the weak and a strong force. Nobody was taught that at school. So I'll read a little bit of this to lead up to what we're getting at here, why it boils down to this analemma basically, the magnetic field over the earth. So here we go, 509. This reality then that gives their truth to the objects of knowledge and the power of knowing to the knower, you must say is the idea of good, and you must conceive it as being the cause of knowledge and of truth in so far as known. Yet fear, as they both are, knowledge and truth is supposing it to be something fairer still than these you will think rightly of. But as for knowledge and truth, even as in the illustration, it is right to deem light and vision sun-like. Light and vision is due to your eyeballs when you're looking at the sun, but never to think that they are the sun. Not a physical object we're looking up there at. So here it is right to consider these two, their counterparts, the two. You've got the sun back here, the original, and the reflection we see out here. I should just put this on a post, a flat spinning baller querying going on about the sun. I said, which sun are you referring to? The one you don't see, never will get to, or the projected image, which is your real sun that you've got a satellite going around. Try and put a satellite around a holographic projection. Complete bullshit. No such thing as satellites. But to think that either of them is the good is not right. Still, higher honour belongs to the possession and habit of the good. They're talking about the man who knows too. An inconceivable beauty you speak of, he said. If it is the source of knowledge and truth, and yet itself surpasses them in beauty, for you surely cannot mean that is a pleasure. So now they're going into what Christians would call Freemasonry, honouring the sun. The sun, black hole, basically our Father. Sun's the Son, S-O-N, black hole's the Father. It's about creation, understanding creation. Not your what you've been taught. Hush, said I, but examine the similitude of it with still further in this way. How? The sun, I presume you will say, not only furnishes to visibles the power of visibility, but it also provides for their generation and growth and nurture through it, though it is not itself generation. The sun doesn't generate itself. It's not a fiery, rocky, gassy ball or whatever like NASA likes to think tell you it is, just burning away and it's going to burn out. No, it's being fed through this system. Hydrogen molecule atoms converted to helium when they go through the choke point. Expansion and contraction. Like manner, then you are to say that the objects of knowledge not only receive from the presence of the good, their being known, but their very existence, and essential to derive to them from it. Though the good itself is not essence, but still transcends essence in dignity and surpasses power. And Glyson, that's how you pronounce his word, very ludicrously said, Heaven save us, hyperbole can no further go. It's just one line. That's it, there's your heaven. Doesn't go any further, stops here. The hyperboloid. Or the vortex, the rest goes back through the earth. All the action's up here though. And I don't desist, he said, but at least expound the similitude of the sun, if there is anything that you are omitting. Now, that one paragraph there is written, basically coded, esoteric text right there. What he's saying, listen carefully, is I don't desist, so he's saying, basically he's saying it doesn't contract or what's the word I was going to use? Can't remember. And I don't desist, he said, but at least expound the similitude. So he's saying it expands the simulation. It's expanding a simulation of the sun, is the word of the sun. If there's anything, because there's nothing physical there, and you are omitting, that you are omitting. So there's nothing physical he's omitting. The sun's not physically emitting. It's to do with frequency in the water and the gaseous layers. And the people who break down the Da Vinci's writings and stuff, they speak of this sort of writing. It's a puzzle. Excuse me. Well, don't omit the least bit, he said. Doesn't. I fancy, I said, that I shall have to pass over much, but nevertheless, so far as it is at present practicable, I shall not willingly leave anything out. That's the sun going around the 360, not leaving anything out. He's talking about practicable is that his position, the position in the season, because it'll spiral out, then it spirals back in to the northern solstice. Do not, he said, conceive then, said I, as we were saying, that there are these two entities. The two entities. That's sun we see. And the one of them is sovereign over the intelligible order and region, and the other over the world of the eyeball. Well, guess which one's the eyeball? the one we see in the tropics, supposedly supposed to be in the tropics, tropical gap. Not to say the sky ball, but let that pass. You surely apprehend the two types, the visible and the intelligible. Intelligible through wisdom and knowledge, the observed visible by the eyeballs. Now this is the paragraph Kim is dealing with, okay? We're going to go over this. Represent them then, as it were, by a line divided into two unequal sections. So we'll do a line. Got a ruler here somewhere. Let's do a line. Can you see that? There's a line. Represent them then, as it were, by a line divided into two unequal sections, and cut each section again in the same ratio. So we'll say there's uneven. Then we'll do it again, uneven again. So you've got one there, and then this one the same, uneven, so like that. Uneven about there. So look at this. So that was the first cut. Same ratio. The section that is of the visible and that of the intelligible. The visible and the intelligible. Bear in mind the visible, the dielectric and the tropics, and the intelligible. We've got the intelligible, stick to that proportion I suppose. Intelligible, I should do a circle, and the visible. Tropics. There's the equator, 23.4 degrees, 23.4 degrees, 66.6 degrees, 66.6 degrees. What have we got? Equals 180 degrees, a meridian. Meridian. It's a meridian from the Arctic all the way over to the Antarctic. A nice symmetrical arc with the tropical gap. It's what we call the dielectric and the capacitor. So we have the beast, where the beast is in here. Strong force, beast, and cattle. Weaker force, more dispersed. Mind blowing, isn't it? So visible and that of the intelligible order. And then as an expression of the ratio of their comparative clearness and obscurity, you will have as one of the sections of the visible world images. By images I mean first shadows and then reflections in water and on surface of dense, smooth and bright texture, and everything of that kind if you apprehend. All reflected into our realm, into the water, the moisture-filled atmosphere. Is images, shadows coming out of the black hole, because the sun projects across the black hole, remember? Black hole, sun on its horizon, black hole, nice symmetrical hole in here, sun reflects across the black hole, shadows, I don't know what they exactly mean there, but the sun creates the light. It's all about frequency, so it comes out of here as a shadow maybe. Once it gets into the gaseous atmosphere, the water and everything, becomes what we perceive with our eyeballs. But, so that's it, guys. And I'll read on. As the second section assume that of which this is the likeness of an image. The likeness of an image. The second section, that's the tropical, that's what we see, our eyeballs. Like previous videos drew the whole analemma over the earth like this. As the second section assumes that of which this is the likeness of an image. That is, the animals about us and all plants and the whole class of objects made by man. What? As the second section assume that of which this is a likeness or an image. That is, the animals about us and all plants and the whole class of objects. Yeah, that's what I've been saying all along. We're not physical. We're perceived. It's in here. It's programmed into our brains to think we're all physical. But it's all come about from the light of the sun in the electromagnetic field of moisture. So I assume it, he said. I assume it, he says. Yeah. Would you be willing to say, said I, that the division in respect of reality and truth, or the opposite, is expressed by the proportion, as is the opinable to the knowledge, so is the likeness to that of which it is a likeness. I think they're basically saying the unequal fields are going to each other to seek equilibrium. Let's read that again. Would you be willing to say, said I, that the division in respect of reality and truth, or the opposites, is expressed by the proportion, as is the opinable to the knowledgeable, so is the likeness to that of which it is a likeness. Am I right there? I certainly would. Consider then again the way in which we are to make the division of the intelligible section. In what way? By the distinction that there is one section of it which the soul is compelled to investigate, by treating an image, the things imitated in the former division, and by means of assumptions from which it proceeds, not up to a first principle, but down to a conclusion. While there is another section in which it advances from its assumption to a beginning or principle that transcends assumptions. This is basically referring to how I'm describing the flat earth, how you have to think and all it equates. See, the spinners just come and say you want evidence, want a photograph, where's your testing and all that. So this paragraph here describes it quite well. imitates in the form of division, and by means of assumptions from which it proceeds, not up to a first principle, but down to a conclusion. It's like adding one and one together, but these spinners, well, maybe they can, but they're just trying to keep their spinning ball spinning, defending it at all costs. Paid trolls, that's all they are. Dickheads. And in which it makes